So I've ran a couple of tests, A/B tests, and that's the USB DAC that comes from the iPad. It's a RME babyface, and it sends optical to the computer, etc, etc. And this is the A/B power switcher, which did in fact, when I pressed the button and changed power supplies, there was a break of about 5 to 10 seconds that I would have to turn off the amps and then count that time, press the button, so that I wouldn't know which sound card power supply was kicking in next, because this one kicked in slower than that one, so I had to do an amount of time in between each test, which was about 15 seconds. And then after I listened to both things about 3 times each, I would then check the status of which power was being used with this thing. I'm showing the voltage means that the circuit was open, and then I would also pull out the one just to confirm at the same time. And then I wrote down my results. And while I haven't done a whole bunch, it was very interesting to get us started. So we're basically comparing a GaN FET PD USB-C AC to USB-C going into a PD tip which specifies 12 volt. So this one negotiates the voltage at 12 volts from these little guys. And so these have a higher switching frequency than normal switching power supplies. And this is the power supply I was going against, which was actually bundled with the RME equipment. It's a RME 12 volt SMPS switch mode power supply. So the first test I did, I actually preferred the RME power supply over the GaN PD charger setup. And then I realized I had my 12 volt charger still running and plugged in, which is one of these nasty, chargers for lithium. And so I turned that off, and then I ran the tests 2 more times, and the GaN with the USB-C came out on top against that one, and then I ran it again. So when I say I run it again, I press the button multiple times with the amps off, like, and just go and then click, turn the amps on, count to 15, and then start playing. So I don't know which one is going to start, and then it actually came out as the same result as test 2. So under the same conditions, I've heard 2 times the difference between these 2 power supplies, and 1 time with a 12 volt charger connected, this one came out better. So when I was making my mind up about the first 2, one of the sounds had like a glare in the top ranges, say, above 12k kilohertz, and it wasn't like, oh, that's really high in the 12 kilohertz. It was just a kind of a graininess, which when you heard the instruments, in this case it was Latin music, they have lots of tinny sounds and wooden sounds and horn sounds. So if anything was panned left and right, it would take your attention away from the depth and the completeness of the soundstage. And in this case, this one was quite glary, and this one had a more less interfered with soundstage, and you could appreciate the middles, and you could almost say it had less treble, given that there was this less annoyance going on. And then when I got down to the second test with the charger off, I still heard this glare versus not glare, but it wasn't as apparent. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, it's probably, I'm gonna kick myself, and these things are no good, and this one was okay. But it did turn out that this one with no interference coming through the electricals had less glare than this one had less glare. So this one was very apparent, with the clarity of the soundstage and not being, your attention being drawn away a little bit. And like I said, this was only a little bit more glare, and so you're just looking for that, is my attention being drawn away from that center image by these glary side images? So if you were to try and pinpoint what might be going on, I think it's just different amounts of ripple in the power line affecting how the left and right channels are regulated in time. So there's a smaller amount of, you could say, jitter in this power supply solution than when you use this power supply solution, because the first sound card in my chain is basically the master clock for all the final stages in this setup, going to the speakers. So backwards you get speakers, amps, sound card, final, have a reclocking sound card, and then I have the other sound card under the seat as the first sound card, and then it's the iPad. So that's the first bunch of tests, and I've got a lot more to do, and we'll see how it all pans out.